Okay, so I spent $1.80. It was about $1.20 with discounts on the Nintendo eShop, and I grabbed myself a copy of The Adventure Pals. And it's a game I knew absolutely nothing about. Didn't know of its existence, didn't know what the gameplay was like. The previews look cool. Now, part of my Gamespresso, I don't necessarily have it as part of what I have to do, but I tend to do it, is I don't want to know anything about these games. It's a cheap game. I'm willing to pay the money. Kind of like if I went out somewhere and got a cheap coffee, and I don't give a shit if it's from a good store or whatnot. Surprise me. And for $1.20, well, was it really worth the caffeine trade-off? I reckon it was. It's actually a really fun game. Like, really, really fun. As in, I recommend people download it right now. It's got some flaws, but for the price, it plays really, really well. It's got some really cool, funny humor, very tight controls, like really, really nicely tight controls. Um, Love the characters in it. They kind of remind me a little bit of Adventure Time, and I'm sure maybe the title has something to do with that too. Where you play as a boy and you got this giraffe that sort of has extra abilities that he can use, and a little pet rock. They're kind of like your main characters that you play around with. And the pet rock is useful in battle as well. It kind of randomly goes and hits enemies, and every time you level up, you get a choice of three cards that you can effectively apply. They're just, permanent power ups to your character. So you can kind of slightly adjust how you play the game. But in the end, it's basically the same thing. You go across an overworld, much the same way you do in Mario or a bunch of these kind of games, and then you go from place to place. It's not sequential, so you might have to go to a particular place to get something, and then you go somewhere else to get something else. And so far, out of probably 20 plus levels that I played, they all play out in the same way, which is it's split into 5 sections, and you go through each of the sections, as you can see in the B-roll. And it progressively sort of gets harder with slightly harder enemies. They introduce them at a really good pace. So you kind of don't really feel like from the start it's too difficult. Maybe it's a little too easy at the start, dare I say. But it's now at that stage where it just feels just right in terms of how difficult the game is. So I played it on Nintendo Switch, but I think it's available on basically most of the platforms, including PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. It's developed by Massive Monster, published by Arma Game Studios, and it's been around since 2018. So it's been around for a little while, hence why I guess you can get it for $1.80.
So, question, Mike. Did you just happen to you said you just randomly saw this game?
Yeah, just randomly was on the eShop.
But the fact that we're all talking about like Cult of the Lamb, did that
Yeah.
not? That's the same developer as this game.
I had no idea.
That's what I'm like. Is
Well, there
that
you
like
go.
a topical thing? Because you're talking. You
Well, I
mentioned
guess it
earlier in the
probably
week.
should be topical, but I had no idea. I didn't know that.
Massive Monster made Cult of the Lamb.
Cool.
And this
Okay, well
game.
there you go. That's probably why they discounted this at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm like, Mike's like,
That is
oh,
so cool.
are you guys grabbing Cult of the Lamb? I'm like,
Oh my
no,
god,
he's
did I
playing this
buy
game.
another Australian developed game for
Man,
$1? Oh god, what
I
have
don't know
done?
if this is.
No,
are
they're,
they
they're Australian and UK.
Well, Hooded Dude said that they're Australian.
they're Australian UK. It's like mixed across those two
okay.
Okay.
jurisdictions.
So they can get away with it, but if you're a New Zealander, nah, you can't say you're Australian now, can you?
No, they're both.
So yeah, look, highly recommend it. These segments are super short. I'm not going to go into too much detail. They're really, to be honest, there isn't a huge amount to the game, if that makes sense. Maybe the lack of some variation lets it down a little bit, but they're still sufficient to keep drawing you to keep playing. And the humor is really fun. I just love it. I love the silly slapstick humor in it. It's just right. It's not overly done. There's some funny references in it. There's some really stupid dad jokes. Because effectively what happens is your dad gets turned into a hot dog at the start of the game, and you have to go rescue him.
I hate when that happens.
Horrible when that happens. So yeah, pick it up. You will not be disappointed, especially for this price.
I think you need a gimmick for this segment, Mike, where you have at the end, we show like a graphic of the coffee and the game, and we do a drum roll and you have to pick one.
Ah, that's a good idea.
So I think in this situation, you choose the game.
100% I choose the game. Yep. Highly
Maybe
recommend
I
it.
can help you set up the same setup that I've got, and I can turn you into a coffee, a 7-Eleven coffee.
While I do the segment.
I can 3D model it.
Perfect. I would
This is
love
a
that.
good
Even
use
if
of
it's
my
just
holiday.
the head. Hey man, maybe that's what you do to relax. Why not?
It is what I do to relax.
All right. Well, let's move on to